This week on New to You, Do-Gooders Part 2, White Helmets. Hey everybody, welcome to the second in our series Do-Gooders, the New to You show. I'm one of your hosts, John Holt. With me this week is
Keith Vincent,
Julian Cage,
and returning guest,
Matt Rodriguez.
All right, welcome back, Matt. So you're not up on deck this week, but what we do here, in case you have never noticed, is we introduce things to people and to one another that may or may not be new. We are all about exposure and sort of sharing the things that we are interested in or have found ourselves coming across in the course of our lives with each other and the world. And that's what this show is about. Look at that. See, I'm slowly moving away from watercolor metaphor.
Yeah. I mean, it's evolution.
I'm just
it takes
dipping
a
my
long
toe
time.
into
takes eons.
a different pool.
Yeah.
All right. So
even the Pope believes in it now.
Last week, I kicked us off with Richard Wayman and the educational documentaries of the 50s, 60s, 70s that he did with blood flowing red on the highway. Mm-hmm. Jules, you're up this week. Why don't you let us go for it? Why don't you run us in?
All right.
Dalam kasih mamamu. Ayo.
My pick is a film, but it's the do-gooders in this case aren't necessarily the filmmakers, but the subjects of the film. It's The White Helmets. It's a 2016 documentary short. It's about 41 minutes long, directed by Orlando von Einsiedel. I can't remember.
Yep.
I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. Yeah. But it takes place in Syria, and the group they call the White Helmets are actually a
all volunteer group.
Yes. Sorry, I'm like blanking on the specific word.
This is like a volunteer rescue crew?
No, it's a civil defense group, is what they call them. So it's the Syrian Civil Defense is actually the name of the group that they have also been dubbed the White Helmets because they wear white like hard hats. And essentially, so Syria has been in the middle of a civil war, which anyone who's been following the news for the past few years is probably aware of, and that has led. And basically, it's a brutal civil war that's also been within the country, but that's also been influenced by a lot of outside forces.
Right. Like it was sort of, it's like initially there were two forces, right? It's sort of like the government and the resistance.
Yeah.
And then,
well, it was more than two, simply because there was never one organized resistance force.
Right.
It was always a.
But then, like, if at least there's sort of like there's the government and the anti-government groups, and then there's the outside, like is like Daesh and stuff that comes in.
It started out as basically a rebel, like a rebellion against the government, and then a lot of other parties got involved, and a lot of Islamist extremists have taken advantage of the situation to get in there as well. So it's become a giant mess, and basically it's there's constant bombings on all sides.
And the Russians are in the mix,
and
they support Assad.
Yeah, and the Russians are supporting Assad. The U.S. for a while was backing the rebellion, and so it's a big mess, and there's no end in sight, and it's led to the Syrian refugee crisis because there's over a million, 1.5 million or something. Like tons of people have been just leaving the country because it's not safe. And so within this war-torn situation, all volunteer-run Syrian civil defense is basically a group of men who have just dedicated their lives to helping people. So the second a bomb hits, they rush to the scene instead of away from it. And their goal is to try and basically once a building collapses, generally they're dealing with like building collapses and things like that, and they just try to find people right away.
Helping to evacuate people.
Yeah, helping to evacuate people and helping to find people who may be trapped under the rubble seems to be one of their primary things. And it started out so over the course of the documentary, you follow like a certain group of these guys, and you kind of get to know them and their situation. And a lot of them, most of them are young men, and they were all, like formerly before the Civil War, like had their own professions that, were totally unrelated. In the midst of this conflict, they've now decided to do this. A lot of them have families, so they risk a lot personally, and they help anyone. They doesn't matter what side they're on, doesn't matter what religion. They just go in and just trying to save lives, and like a lot of the civilians there, they're like they just want the war to end, and throughout the film you follow them, and at one point they leave the country to go to, I think, was it Turkey or no?
Yeah, Turkey.
Yeah, to Turkey,
just over the border,
just to get training, because basically since they're all amateurs, like they have gotten some outside support. They could go to a safe place outside the conflict where they were getting professional training on how to rescue people, just to be more effective. And during that time, the whole time they're following the news on their phones, and
calling back.
Yeah, and their families are getting attacked and all this stuff. So
and I mean, they're also from Aleppo, which is like
the
hotbed. And this movie's from when, 2016 or 2015?
Yeah, 2016. Yeah,
and so
it may have been shot in 2015, but it was released.
The group, the White Helmets, had been sort of formed in 2013.
Mm-hmm. And so it's just, you just watch, and it's just super, they're super courageous, selfless, and also, it's just the kind of thing, like when you're presented with that kind of choice, what do you do, And, when you watch this, you ask yourself, like, what would I do? I don't know if I would be as courageous as these guys, but you don't know till you're put in that situation, I don't think.
And thank goodness.
Yeah, and in some ways, till you have. The other thing too is that they choose to stay, in the midst of this.
Even when I'm sure a lot of people in that situation, they get to go to Turkey and be away from all the war. Mm-hmm. They'd be like, I'm out of here.
Yeah. But that's part of it too. They're just super committed to not giving up, and some of them are even talk about hope and all this stuff in this just crazy, hopeless situation. And I don't know, it just makes you. I don't know. To me, it's affirming that there's a lot of goodness in humanity, even in those kinds of extreme situations.
Yeah, it is brutal. There's 2,900 of these guys over 120 different little civic pockets throughout the country, and they all have families still in Syria for the most part, and they're protected. They're militia, but it's more like you're saying civic militia whose duty isn't to fight. Some of them were rebels at one point, but put down their guns and have chosen to take this like humanitarian rescue path, which makes them a target for both sides. Not so much the rebels, I don't think, but definitely a target for Assad and his regime, and for Daesh and those guys, because Daesh wants terror and these guys bring hope, and then Assad is a war criminal and just wants, to make sure people are oppressed.
The other thing too is in the middle of the like kind of being on the ground with them, sort of having their point of view, you realize just like how insane it is. Like in the at one part in the film, like they bomb the hospital.
Yeah, the Russians.
well,
which is insane. Like
the stark aspect of it is, it really puts you on the ground there, and it's really just a matter of just sitting there, having a regular life, as regular as you can, and you just hear a jet, and it's just like, we got to get ready, there's going to be a bomb. Like, could you imagine living like that for well over 5 years now?
Yeah.
When did you say it was created?
2013
was when they were organized enough to actually start getting people together to help.
Right.
So it was going on before that. So.
Yeah, and it's just crazy. And you just you also realize that, like, at this point, it's like they don't even know or care what side anyone is on. It's just like they just want it to end.
Yeah,
right.
And they don't care who wins at this point. Yeah. It's just like, just stop the bombs, please. Yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
It's brutal because it seems to like people sticking their finger in the dike a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they don't have the machines, they don't have the mechanisms to stop this from above. They're living on it on the ground, and they're doing what they can to assuage the pain and like help people. And from the outsider's perspective that you have, the other aspect of it is, well, especially when they're in Turkey, what like they kind of are they're us, and that they're viewing this thing, but they have personal connections. Our personal connection is to them, and it's just sort of like, when are one of these guys going to die? They're talking about how their buddies are dying all the time, and they're worried and losing brothers and children and family members all the time, but they keep going back, which it just seems inevitable that they'll all be gone. Like, and it's just a matter of like, they're sort of like the last flickering candle in the darkness kind of thing.
Maybe. I don't know. But I mean, it says it's to date, at least when they put up the film's website, 154 of them had been killed. But that they had saved, I mean, that this is an estimate, but that they had saved 78,000 lives. So and the number is growing down. So that's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
But I mean, what it does is if the conflict can end, that there is hope, like there is like normalcy, you know what I mean? It's not just everyone's fighting. There's so many people who are just caught
just surviving.
Yeah, and that footage too, like that first shot, the first footage. I mean, I didn't know what I was getting into. I just turned it on. I was like, oh, cool, this is a documentary. I popped it on. I watched it, and that first footage of, like you were talking about, like really putting you in there. That footage is so in your face that you never see a footage like that unless it's filmed like a movie or something. So I had to stop it, go back out. I'm like, am I watching a documentary? Because this is, and then it said, documentary. So it was pretty shocking. Like, it shook you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think even though the director is there, like, I think most of the camera people were also Syrians.
I think that they were probably people within that group too.
Yeah. So I think it's the kind of thing where they, they just kind of gave them the equipment, maybe some training, some oversight, and then they did the editing and all that kind of stuff.
I mean, it's like I thought it reminded me of Children of Man.
Yeah.
Like that kind of footage, but this is real. This is.
There's these moments where they're like interviewing the guys and they're looking you like dead in the face, and there's a lot of like, and then when they're like on the phone calling about their dead brothers and all this stuff, and when they tell this tale about this baby that they saved, they pulled this infant from the rubble, and they call it Mahmoud, the miracle baby, who like they just found this 1 month old or 2 week old infant in the rubble, and it's now a 2-year-old, and they were all crying when they found him. And basically, I mean, this is a little dark on my end, but I was in there, I was definitely tearing up. But I'm also like, this is a very manipulative film, and there's a lot. It is propaganda for these guys. Yeah. Not to say that it isn't a necessary propaganda, but it's a propaganda, and that's something to be aware of too.
Let me dig on that a little bit. So, when does something become? Because to me, I always felt like in order for something to be propaganda, it has to be coming from a place of power. And I don't believe that this representation could be identified as that simply because it's not a force trying to control the masses. It's more of just information.
Well, I think he's maybe propaganda is a stronger. I think what he's saying is that it's not trying to be objective or something. Right. It's definitely on their side.
Well, the thing that I love about it is if you're there on the ground, there's no other way to be. Right, like if you're there in Aleppo, you're not going to be like, well, there are two sides of the story. Right. You know what I mean?
Well, that's the other thing. It's like what you could say is it's emotionally manipulative, but most films are,
Right, I guess.
And I mean, the thing is, it's a situation also that is like, it's just loaded with how can you...
Right, you can't avoid
not
the
be
emotional
because it's just so intense, and it's literally life and death, and it's people risking their lives for others. Like, it's just, I can just thinking about that idea is like moves you a little bit, and for it to be real and to be real people, I don't know. I think it's I kind of understand what you're getting at, but to me, it's like it doesn't feel like I think saying propaganda is very strong.
Well, yeah, propaganda is.
no, but I
mean,
I
it's
don't
a
think
very loaded word to begin with, but also when it does have a definite definition. I don't think that this fits it because it's more like so it's emotional, but I wouldn't
people,
say yeah.
I could put a tagline on this saying, "Go to Syria, join the White Helmets," and it wouldn't seem like if you put that card at the end or every 5
like you
minutes,
could have a call to action, or like send money to help these efforts.
Right. That it is the vehicle without that message. So I guess I do want to put out that it's very much like what it's good about is it's a side of the story that we don't see, and it's a story that we don't hear about. That's what's important about it. But it is a side of the story. It's not all the sides of the story. And so
well, and there is, I mean, if you go to the
that being said, I think it's the it's the most hopeful, honest, and painful side of the story.
I mean, I think what I do like about it is even though it does, obviously it shows them in a good light. I mean, I think it would be very difficult not to. But I think it does a lot at just showing you the complexity of the situation without having to tell you anything.
Right.
Like, it just shows you, like, because this has been in the news so much, and it's like this really like connected me to that story, like in a very different way. And now when I read the news, like it like I take it in a very different way, and it just so I think it's both. It's sort of like kind of like a feel good story in a way, but at the same time, it's like it just barely manages to overcome just the nightmare that the situation is.
Yeah, I mean, I think what's on my side, like if we had like free flow, like we said, we're taking in, like if everyone wanted to leave Syria right now, like straight up, everyone wants to be a refugee, and we were welcoming them in, and everyone was just open arms everywhere, and so Russia and Assad were kind of put in a position where the whole rest of the country, like they're just bombing an empty shell, and they have no people to rule at a certain point. Like if that's and then the international community turned back against them. I mean, that's when I'm like, these guys should just get out of there with everybody else and let it go. But what's dark and dangerous on our end is this country now has turned away and closed its borders and crossed its arms to these people, and they don't have a choice. And so these guys are the last. They're the last hope for their people to at least hold out until somebody who can actually stop this comes to their senses.
Yeah. But I mean, at the same time, it's like a lot of these most of these people they don't want to have to leave. They want the conflict to end so they can stay in their homes,
rebuild their lives. Yeah,
it's like if war broke out here and everything was bombed the crap out,
Well, that's the thing to consider is Aleppo is the size of Chicago. I mean, in 2005 there were 2.7 something million, right around there, somewhere between 2.4 and 2.7 million people, and that's the size of Chicago. It's the size of Dallas, and so this is the thing that is really cool about this movie, and it's something I thought about during the shock and awe campaign of the Gulf War in 2003. Is that this was Baghdad at the time was a city the size of Chicago that had blackouts every single day. Like you only had power and I was like, just imagine that, being in a city that large and having no power every single day. And that's kind of what Aleppo's been dealing with for years now.
Right.
And oh, by the way, bombs every now and then. You know what I mean? Yeah. Any minute now, just random buildings will get blown up, and sometimes not random.
Yeah.
Sometimes hospitals. And I just think that because you're in there on the ground, you are one of them in this movie. You are one of them. You are one of the people in Aleppo, kind of. I mean, thankfully, from viewing it from the safety of your own home. But you can't help but side with the people who are trying to help others in it. You know what I mean? I don't think the only propaganda in the movie is war is bad and people are getting killed. That's what I think. It's not like saying, we should help the rebels or anything like that. It's just saying, gee whiz, let's help those kids who are bleeding from this bomb.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, and this is on my end, I wanted, I should do a little more research and make, like, again, the cynic in me goes, are they definitely saving everybody? Like what are their, I want to be sure that they have, that they're not just saving certain neighborhoods, or that they're, that's something else to concern yourself with. And they're the only ones in this documentary telling you everyone in this war is my brother, everyone is my mother, everyone is my child. I don't know. That's a pretty big.
But they're an organization, and they have, this is the organization's principles. Whether everyone in there,
but the organization, they show you the guy who runs the organization who's at the training camp, and that's one thing that's sort of lacking. There, like you're saying, the one lack of objectivity. If there was someone, like a voice that said, this group has committed, this is the manifesto for this group, and they just read that manifesto or even pasted it up so that you knew, like, okay, these guys, doesn't matter if you're Shia, doesn't matter like if you're Sunni, doesn't matter if you're Christian, they're out there to save everybody. Again, and I'm not putting out there that they don't. Yeah. I'm just saying I don't know, and this movie doesn't give you that information.
Right.
Well,
but that is the case, and they're part of a.
I mean, they claim it.
They're part of a greater. They're part of a greater. There's an international civil defense organization, so I think a lot of this, it's sort of like they're following like a model that's been developed to help people.
But look, I'm not saying that they're selling secrets to the Russians. I'm not saying that they are. I never said that.
Right. Well, no. What I like about the movie is that, most documentaries you would have some point where there's narration and someone says, since year 2000X, there's been a war waging on, and this movie has none of that.
Yeah. There's title cards that do that.
You like the rest of us. You like the people there. It's just never ending. You don't get a chance to catch your breath and see footage of.
They show you the interviews and stuff.
What you were talking about, where you get like a little historical perspective, or you get to get some information on what the rules are. You know what I mean? It's just you don't really get that breathing room, which I think is effective. I think as far as the filmmaking is concerned, that's
through the interviews
powerful.
You do get the basics, and you do get a sense of what they care about and all that kind of stuff. But I mean, I think it's also nice that it's just 40 minutes. I don't think it needed to necessarily be longer, and it's nice that places like Netflix give a platform, because that's a strange length. You can't really theatrically release that. It's also too long to be as part of a shorts
festival
category.
Baby. That's it. Yeah, something like that would be just a festival.
It's. I mean, I'm glad that Netflix and Amazon are putting a lot of money, and HBO put a lot of money into documentaries and don't care about the length and stuff.
Yeah, there were definitely parts that were like, again, I was watching the Highways to Hell thing from last week, and it's like old, off the shoulder like footage of people dying and stuff, and it gets pretty rough. And again, like the hardest stuff is when you hear people like dying, like the voice of that, or in pain. That's brutal. But this one is, because the quality's a lot nicer. The people are wearing.
Well, there's a lot more children. Yeah, that's the other. It's really heart-wrenching because they're in every scene. They're just carrying children out of these buildings, and they're carrying kids and handing them off to people. It's devastating.
Right. And I mean, this is also in the same day where I'm telling pig farm town living uncles why that little picture of why people are posting the picture of the Syrian kid face down in the sand. Yeah. Like why that actually still is relevant and matters, especially when the garbage bag in chief is.
Well, that's what I was going to say about it. This movie it's devastating, but it reminds me, like, thank God we don't let any of those people into this country.
Oh, I know
because
they're so dusty, and you see like their old fashioned.
Yeah, I know. It's just like, dude, what are you going to do with that helmet here in America? Give me a break.
Right.
Yeah,
and just because like we've been politically meddling in that country and we were complicit in the situation doesn't mean we're responsible. We should just forget about it.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to sort itself out. They're going to save everybody, right? That's what this documentary taught me.
Yeah.
They're the hope that will ignite the fire of change.
No, they're just
Oh, we're
John, that's being misleading.
Why am I being
just to be clear.
No, but I was being serious in that, like,
No, they don't show. To me, they're not hope. They don't offer any hope. Of fixing the conflict.
No.
They're just damage control.
right.
They just do damage control, and they help civilians, or they help whoever's injured.
Well, the hope that's there, I think, watching it though, what I get hope from is knowing that
It's hope for humanity.
exactly these
Right.
people that in this situation, people chose this, chose to stay and help people,
Right.
chose to, when.
Right.
Not everybody can leave and become a refugee,
Right. And that's like there's a sentiment from the Holocaust where someone says the best of us, like we're the leftovers, the best of us are dead, because the people who fought, who gave their rations away, who put themselves in harm's way to save others, the strongest and the ones who had the moral character are the ones who are dead, and they stepped up and took that, and it's a lesson for those who remain. And that's where I'm saying these guys are hope. It's when you hear them with their horn blaring as they rush towards a thing, and in their white helmets, it's kind of Ghostbusters a little bit, like it's a little amateur-y, but it's what everybody's got. Like they don't have pediatricians there, let alone doctors, let alone probably even firefighters. So this is it. Like this is who they got.
Well, they've got some doctors, but these guys go and take and just get people out.
Yeah, out of the rebel zone.
Yeah.
Because stuff's still crashing around them, and there's fires and stuff when they get there. But it reminds me of the thing that Fred Rogers talks about. When in bad times, you can look around and things can be terrible all around you, but look for the helpers. That'll give you hope, and that's what these guys are doing. And I think it's.
Yep.
That out of all of our picks, and this is just my opinion, but this one, Jules, the pick that you brought to the table is really the one that's, I don't know.
They're the
fits.
do-goodiest of
Yeah,
do-gooders.
exactly. Yeah.
Way to shit on Roger Clemens.
Yeah. Yeah. Take that, Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
But
anyways. Anybody else? Any last words?
Well, I have a question. Do you know anything? Is this at all up for any nominations or anything?
I believe
in
the
Oscars.
It came out this year or last year?
It was
16.
2016. Yeah, it says 2016, but
if that's not up for any Oscars, I mean, give me a
short
break.
film documentary.
Even just any document like that should just go to the top of the line.
Propaganda.
Yeah.
Yeah. John thinks they buried the baby there, and then they,
Yeah.
all right, get the camera.
hey, get the hope baby.
Get me some glycerin for my eyes. So it looks like I was crying.
No, but I mean, it's just. Just think about that, just being buried underneath a building, and all of a sudden,
it is an Oscar nominee for Best Documentary Short.
Oh, awesome!
Thank goodness.
Good.
Very
good.
And it seems that it's being adapted into a feature, but I don't know if that's really happening or not.
I think what I would do is go read about White Helmets in terms of what they stand for and what their good, what their mission is, and then watch this documentary, and then it'll, without any doubts that my cynical brain had, that would have shed that, and I would have seen them for the earnest, heartfelt people who hold hope against all odds. That they are, and I recognize that, and I saw that in this documentary, and it was really moving and really hard to watch, it was good, but yeah,
and
my mind couldn't stop guessing fake news is everywhere.
And thank you to all the movies that have kind of trained us to be okay watching a movie this long that's all handheld, shaky camera. Thank you, Blair Witch Project. Thank you, all those crappy.
Thank you, cops.
Yeah, exactly.
And a side note, the same director also made another documentary called Varanga, which is also on Netflix, which is also great, and it's about, I won't tell you what it's about. Just check it out on Netflix. Varanga. It's more complex than it seems.
It's so Varanga, if I remember correctly, it's this Middle Eastern town that is inside of a board game called Varunga. And these children find it in their attic, and they're sucked
And they
into
have to
Varunga.
No,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
Jumanji. That's
No, this is the third one.
This is the
It goes-
third one.
Goes Jumanji,
Zathura,
and,
Zathura,
and then Zamanga.
yeah, Duranga, whatever.
Yeah, Durango.
Anyways, it's also super interesting.
And it's awesome because like you roll the dice and then you get this card comes out and it's like and it says like racial atrocity.
Yeah.
And then you have to live it.
I'm the ghost of Robin Williams.
Right? Sounds like a great documentary, right?
Yeah. No, it's a documentary about this game and you get to see all the stuff happen.
Right. It's
Kirsten
like that.
Dunst.
It's like that, like paranormal activity, kind of like found footage,
Yep.
fictional.
Check it out,
docu-
Varunga.
White Helmet. So, how'd you find it, Jules? What drew you to it?
It was spotlighted on Netflix. It was, on their new featured section, and I've been watching a lot of documentaries recently. And it was also by the same. I had watched Varunga, which was also featured on Netflix.
Which is again is about a game called Varunga.
Yeah.
About this
And
game
so-
these kids found in an attic.
And so, I was like, hey,
yeah.
it fits do-gooders perfectly.
I was gonna say, in this day and age, it found you.
Yeah,
You know?
exactly. Exactly.
They have this whole
It
thing. on there.
algorithmed
Yeah.
right to your heart.
Yep.
Totally.
It
All right.
algorithmed the fuck out of me.
So it's on Netflix. Check it out now while there's still Syrians left, I guess, would be
Yeah,
the other thing.
yeah.
And I'm sure
I mean,
there's...
Well,
I
there
think
will
it'll
always be at
always-
least one Syrian.
It always,
Assad.
I think it'll always be good, but it's particularly relevant right now.
Right. And I mean, again, this is maybe some research to do, but there may be ways to, one, within our own country, go talk to somebody about helping out, not becoming an isolationist, rotting husk of ourselves, but, to look outside, and there's probably a way to directly...
Yeah, if you go to
this.
whitehelmets.org, you can find out more about the film and about the organization, and you can also donate at the bottom of the page. So there's definitely some follow-up.
And if you want the other side, Alex Jones has a really good documentary called What's Under the White Helmet
Yeah.
that I would check out.
Just to stay informed.
Just to,
Just to hear both sides.
yeah. Because,
Not-
it's so
Because it's fair and balanced.
Not to be confused with what's underneath the white hood.
Yeah. Which is, yes, Steve Bannon.
He's back. Steve Bannon.
Did you miss me? It's like the mask of the hood.
It's like King Ralph.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Did you guys read that profile of Steve Bannon? I think it was
GQ.
might have been in the New Yorker.
Oh.
And it was also featured on, they interviewed the guy who wrote the article on the media podcast, on the media.
On the media.
The On the Media podcast.
Bob Garfield.
Yeah, it's interesting to read. It's illuminating.
Nice.
You get a better sense of who he is.
Yeah.
And you're like, you know what? I think it's okay that he replaced a bunch of generals on the Security Council. That makes a lot of sense.
Oh no, not at all.
No? Oh.
And that's the political corner.
Yeah.
Next week is baseball.
Yeah. 325 days until spring training, y'all.
All right. So March Madness. Trump's got his pick.
Super Bowl. Are we even allowed to say that? I think
It's
we have
post Super Bowl.
to. Oh, yeah. Well, okay. Well, we got to move on. Right?
So, all right. Again, good pick, Jules.
Yeah.
Thanks. This is a good one. White
Yeah.
Helmets on Netflix.
Way to make me think and feel again.
And question
I've
my
been
own
trying not
feelings.
to for a while and
Oh,
think.
man. Well, don't get involved in documentaries. What a headache.
I have a cynical robot heart, Jules. I'm fine. All right.
Robot heart does not feel.
But it can hate.
Go marching in when the saints go marching in.
To such a question, there are many possible answers, such as hard work.
Feel I'm alone in this whole
Hey, everybody. Thank you for listening to the second in our Do-Gooders episode. I was one of your hosts, John Holt. You can find me on Twitter at Lord Joho, and you can find me on Instagram at Bored, B-O-R-E-G, Ghost, G-O-H-S-T.
And I'm one of your other hosts, Keith Vincent, and you can find me at earthlingkeith.com. That's E-A. I'm not going to spell it.
E-A-G-O-H.
Your third host, Julian Cage. You can find me on Twitter or Instagram at Beautiful Jules. That's Jules, J-U-L-E-S. And how about you,
Not
Mr.
Jules like J-U-L-Z.
Or J-W-E-L-Z.
And me, the guest person, Matt Rodriguez.
Yeah.
Hey.
And you can find me
And
on,
Mr. was there, too.
And I was there too. In white helmets. You just didn't see me.
I was there picking you out of the rubble. That's why there was only one footprint in the sand the whole time.
Or throwing pebbles on top. Yeah, but you could find me on Mr. Insta on Instagram or Mr. Draws on Tumblr.
All right.
Or Correcto Cartoons and blogspot.com.
Oh, nice.
Ooh.
Forgot about that one.
Dusting off that old chestnut.
Yeah,
Blogspot,
there's a
baby.
lot. That was like a Indiana Jones
Talk
moment
about
there.
finding a game in the attic.
Oh my gosh, did you see that dust?
Speaking of which, I think I accidentally let futureanimators.com expire.
Oh, no.
It is
Now
officially
someone's going to
dead.
steal
But
it.
I never used it, so maybe that's okay.
I think fafcom.com is still alive because I still get emails from Network Solutions,
No
but I don't
way.
pay for it. I don't know where. I don't know
It's
even
a
who
ghost
controls
of
it.
FAF.
Maybe we paid for unlimited
Maybe.
for perpetuity.
And they're really mad about
the
it.
ghost.
Yeah, maybe use one of them forever stamps
Yeah,
when you paid
exactly.
it, and they're like, well, they use a forever stamp.
So, Mister, before we roll into next week's teaser and then roll out of here, what was new to you this week?
Oh, new to me this week. You know what? Actually, I want to bring up 5 centimeters per second. It's a Japanese. I think his name's Makoto Shinkai, and he also did a film that's super duper big, but didn't get nominated for an Oscar, and is the biggest like anime ever now. And that is Your Name. So actually,
Called
those,
Your Name?
Yeah.
It's called Your Name, and it's.
I think they're like finally releasing it in the U.S. in theaters like in the next couple weeks because
Oh, okay.
I don't know why, but it's like getting a very limited release. It's sort of annoying.
Yeah, which
But it like blew up
yeah.
in China too. It's huge.
Yeah, and in Korea too, it's really big. But it's believe the hype on that film. Actually, it kind of took me by surprise. It's like I don't want to give it anything away, but I would say it's very grounded, and he's really good at getting you into this emotional level throughout the whole thing.
It's called Your Name?
It's called Your Name. Yes.
And what's the other one that you're
His earlier film was 5 centimeters per second, 5 centimeters per second, and it's it has the stylistically it's kind of
That's
the
not
same.
that fast, though. 5
it
centimeters
feature
per
length?
second's not that
but
fast.
that's the speed the cherry blossom falls from the tree. Yes, and and you can actually see that on YouTube on like
The whole
HD.
thing.
Yes, the whole thing on HD.
So how did you see this other one, though? You saw the other one? Your
I'm
Name?
not telling. Maybe I saw it in a theater.
Okay, good. Yeah, at
It
a real
was-
cool indie theater. You would have never heard of
it's
it. It was
so
in Canada.
cool. It's so cool. It's in Brooklyn.
Yeah. She's real pretty. I met her at summer camp.
Yeah, but yeah. So, but I think it had a super limited run, like during maybe I don't know. I'm just saying lies now at this point. I'm
making it up.
I'm just making it up. Oh yeah.
Alternative trivia.
Yeah, it was shown at the 7-Eleven. So, no, it wasn't.
So Mr. may or may not have seen it through semi-alternative legal means.
Yeah.
But you say it's really good.
Well,
so when it
yes,
does come here,
yes,
we
I
should
mean,
go see it.
Actually, I do plan to see it because the backgrounds on Shinkai's stuff is super amazing. It is like one of you just
Like Tech on King Creed, amazing.
yeah, and it's every second. Like especially when you go onto YouTube and you watch 5 centimeters per second, it's like boom, boom, boom. Like the backgrounds are constantly like
Wow.
bam, and I just wonder how much work just went into the backgrounds. And people tell me it's like I just kind of zoned out and I didn't like
Watch
read
the backgrounds.
Yeah, I didn't read the subtitles. I just watched the backgrounds and and it's that kind of film. I mean, it was really
Subtitles are like, "You're an asshole
Yeah.
if you just watch it in the background."
the man's keeping you down.
Consume.
No, obey. The subtitles though are probably, if you did read them, they'd be like, "What are you doing reading these? You should watch
Yeah.
the background, sucker."
No, it gives you a description of the background.
Yeah.
So it's like, bus waiting for,
All
yeah,
right. And so that you can watch that. It's 5 centimeters per second on YouTube.
on YouTube. And
it's on YouTube. You can get sub or dub, whatever you prefer.
Yeah.
Nice.
you could put it on your Chromecast.
Jules pulled it up on his humongous phone.
It's real
pretty
pretty.
nice looking stuff.
Real pretty.
Yeah. But you should, the one that you should really see is
Your Name.
Your Name.
Cool. All right. Thanks, mister, for bringing that one up.
Yep.
We'll
No
check it out.
Bro, why didn't they just film this? Would have been so much easier. Jeez.
Yeah, stage it.
No, really. Yeah, they should have just filmed it.
Oh, but then their eyes wouldn't have been so big.
There's those emoji filters you can get.
Yeah.
Just run that over the whole
Oh, you know
movie.
what? You know what? Maybe Tim Burton will remake it.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey, now.
Emoji eyes.
All right, gang. So to find out more about 5 centimeters per second and white helmets and all the stuff we talked about on the show, like the board game Zamanju, Vamanso, go check out our website, newdioshow.com. You should go to iTunes, and even if you don't listen through iTunes and you listen through some app, go to iTunes and rate and review us, because that is a good way to get the word out. And you know what? Directly get the word out. If there's something that you really liked that we talked about, or something that you found that came up, tell someone about that thing, but also tell them where you found it. Tell them about
don't
us.
be shy. Don't be shy.
Be a do-gooder.
Yeah.
You know?
White. You know what? We're the white helmets. We're saving you from a life
Yeah,
of
we're saving things from the rubble of popular culture.
right
Yeah,
and boredom. We're saving you from being trapped
We're
under.
pulling them
Especially
out.
the children.
We're pulling them out and presenting them to
We're
you.
pulling out the bleeding children of your tastes.
And speaking of bleeding children of taste, who is our Mahmoud the Miracle Baby next week? Who's going to be?
I think
bringing
I'm
the
gonna go
next
up
thing?
next
So
week.
Keith, what's our Mahmoud next week?
Well, I mean, it sounds silly after Jules brought forth these really good do-gooders, but I'm going to talk about Matt Damon.
Damon.
Because, I this is still a recommendation podcast, and I still wanted to recommend something that wouldn't make people's hearts hurt. So I'm going to talk about Matt Damon.
Matt Damon.
and all the good work he does, and all the good movies he's made.
And so specifically, what should somebody go watch?
Well, the
to kinda
film
get
I'm
themselves
gonna
into?
talk about most is The Informant, which I thought was a little kind of lost in the dust a little bit, but I think is
Soderbergh's.
Soderbergh. Yep, and it's just an amazing. I consider it to be an amazing film.
Cool.
Yeah.
But is that the do-gooder?
No, the do-gooder part is Matt Damon himself, who runs lots and lots of charities.
Cool.
All right.
And is an outspoken, unofficial spokesperson for public schools in America, which I think is a really, really good thing.
Yeah, so watch Informant, but don't read about Matt Damon, because we're going to give you all that information.
No,
next
go ahead and
week.
read about him, because
No,
I'm
we'll
just going to
give you-
give you the highlights.
We're going to give you
If
everything.
even that. Yeah.
We know everything. We've seen everything, Matt Damon.
We lived in Boston. We know all about Matt Damon.
How do you like them apples?
Yeah,
How do you enjoy these fruits of the forbidden tree?
I don't know. See y'all next week.
Yeah, gang.
Yeah, later.
So yeah, Do-Gooders Part 3. Look for that. Go check out The Informant, and we'll be up next. Gang, it may not be new, but maybe it is new to you.
Explosion sound.
Quick, towards the explosion.
Pitiful life is all about the music. This pitiful life is all about the music.
Be with him together forever, without the limitation of time ever again. So the second coming of the Lord is not